Everybody should see, everybody sees my slide that says drone experiment. Yeah,
Yes.
just thumbs up. You see it?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so about 2 months ago, sometime in August, the budget director at the House authorized me to allow me to buy a drone. And I went out and did some research, and I figured it's been a learning curve, and I'm still in the middle of it. I'm still early in it, but it's so exciting. I just wanted to share what it's like to all of a sudden become a new drone owner and fly. So this is my recent experience. And we can get into the details of what drone I bought and how much I spent and all that kind of stuff later. But right now, let's just get started. So for our purposes, a drone is a flying camera, which is why it's appropriate for the Photo Society, because basically it's just a camera that flies and gets up in the air and gives you different angles and different perspectives. I did not buy a drone that can bomb anybody. I did not buy a drone that does espionage and spying. Well, I guess it could, but not for me. It's just another way of taking pictures, another way to get creative with my photography. So think of the drone as a flying camera. So for this presentation, and by the way, tonight we're doing a double header. The first part of the presentation is going to be me talking about my drone and my drone experiences. The second part will be some slides from a person that Eileen got presentation. I'm going to go through those slides. Unfortunately, we can't ask a lot of questions about those pictures because we just have the presentation. We don't know what kind of camera or film or anything we use, but those pictures are worth seeing. It's like a photo book live, so it's worth seeing. And then after we do that, if we have more time, I'll show more drone footage, but I want to keep the presentation moving so we don't bog down in pieces. So we're going to talk about what's involved being a drone owner. One part is the logistics of just flying it's an aircraft. It's a quadcopter. What's involved in flying this thing? What can you do with it? How do you fly it? The next one is using the camera, because once you figure out how to fly it, then you can start taking pictures. And then once you start taking pictures, just like when you bought a camera, you know, a DSLR or mirrorless, learning the logistics of how to use a camera is one thing, but then how to get creative with it's another. And I've got some tips and suggestions if anybody else wants to become a drone pilot and owner also. Okay, so with flying a drone, you have basic controls. You basically have two joysticks. Let me just do something here. I'm going to, if I hold my thing up, can you see me in my window? So this is what the controller looks like, and there's two joysticks, and they actually have little things that stick in here, and you screw them in. So you've got a joystick over here, a joystick over here, and both joysticks, you know, can go up, down, right, left. So we have a controller, and depending which drone you have is which controller you get. But the controller, you have a left joystick and a right joystick. The left joystick, if you push it forward, the drone's going to go up in the air. If you push it towards you, down, back, it goes down. If you push it to the left, it's going to go counterclockwise. And if you push it to the right, it's going to go clockwise. And it sounds really easy until you're actually flying it, and until you get some muscle memory. It takes a while to get used to that. Those aren't too bad. The other joystick, which is the right joystick, if you push it forward, push it, you know, away from you, the drone goes forward. If you push it back, it goes backwards. If you push it to the right, it flies sideways, or I call slide right. And if you push it to the left, it goes slide left. The hard ones to learn is slide left and slide left, because regardless of which way the drone is facing, clockwise is clockwise and counterclockwise is counterclockwise. Up is up and down is down. The other one is, depending if the drone is facing like the same way you are, forward, reverse, right, and left makes sense. But as soon as the drone turns around, forward is now towards you and reverse is away from you. And right is now left and left is now right. So it takes a little bit of getting used to using these controls. Not hard, you just have to get used to it and you have to practice. So as you're flying, this is the controller, and it's not on, but if you look at my screen, you'll see there's a screen here. That's what you're actually seeing as you're flying. And if you can see, a lot of things you got to worry about. You're watching what your height and distance from you is, and that's down here. You have a map and you can click this and it would actually show you, so you can actually see where the drone is in terms of like a Google map. Here's camera settings, which there's so many settings which beyond the scope of this presentation. There's auto, there's manual. You can set your EV, you can set, I was shooting in 4K 30 video. My drone will go up to 4K 60, has a lot of different things. And then you have other things like you're watching here, which is the battery information, because you typically get about 30 minutes on a battery. And the drone's smart enough. If it gets low, it's going to say, I'm getting out of battery, I'm returning to home. And you can override that, but you'd be silly too. So if the drone runs out of battery while it's in the air, it just becomes a rock. So you want to, and then here's signal strength. And this is how it knows where it is, because it actually has GPS built into it. So that's what you're looking at as you're flying. So in my experience, what I found was when you first start practicing, go find an open field like a baseball field, a soccer field, something with no obstacles, and practice and try to get used to actually just flying the drone, going forward, back. The joysticks also go diagonal. So if you take the right joystick and you push it forward and to the right a little bit, it's going to go forward and slide to the front. It's going to go like at a 45-degree angle. So all these things can go, the joystick, so you can go forward, can angles, and so it's totally as you're driving it, how it goes. You got to get the feel of that. Watch out for obstacles. The second day I was flying, I hit a tree. I broke the camera on the drone. Thankfully, I had bought the insurance policy with the drone. I was able to send it back and got a replacement pretty quickly. But it was frustrating because it took like 2 weeks. The company was quick at turning it around, but you have to send it to California. And when you send it ground UPS, it takes like 5 days to get there and 5 days to get back. And then it took them a day to just turn it around. One thing you're supposed to do is maintain visual contact with the drone. You're supposed to keep it in eyesight. Well, the drone, I'm going to show you what the drone is. So basically, this is the drone folded up. It unfolds a little bit, but you can tell, you can see it fits in the palm of my hand. It's pretty tiny. And so if you're flying at 300 feet in the air and it's 500 feet away from you, there's no way you can see it unless you had binoculars or a telescope or something. It's tiny. It's the size of a baseball, softball. And it's gray, which means it becomes invisible during the day. At night, it's got some flashing lights, which are tiny, which become invisible when you get far away. So it's very hard to maintain visual contact, though legally you're supposed to. In practice, I don't think anybody ever does. One thing they recommend is you bring a friend, be a visual spotter, because as soon as you look down at your control, you're going to lose the where it is. I brought my wife for a few times, and while she was pretty good at it, every now and then she says, "It's over there." Oh no, that's an airplane flying in the air, above us. It's so easy to lose control. So it's just practice, practice, practice. I'm still in the practice phase. I've had the drone about 2 months now, and I'm getting a lot better. But even though it takes a little bit to get used to and how to fly it, it's a boatload of fun. So I'm not sorry I have this thing. I am just loving it to death. So using the camera. Well, the camera is really like a mirrorless camera. It's a depending which drone model you buy, depends which camera. I mean, there's lots of different models. DJI is one of the bigger manufacturers of drones. Mine's a DJI. You can get a Maverick 3, you can get a Maverick Mini 3, you can get a, oh, there's some you actually wear goggles and a headset, and you actually drive as if you were actually flying it. But either way, like a mirrorless camera, there's a camera, and then it shows on a display. In your case, it's the controller where it's showing so you're seeing what the camera sees in pretty much real time on the display as it's flying overhead. What specifications does the drone have? Depends which model you buy. And that's where you have to figure out which kind of drone you want to buy. You have to do the research on that. Similar to a handheld camera, your DSLR, mirrorless, you have an aperture, you have a shutter speed, you have an ISO. As photographers, those are all terms that I don't have to explain because you all know what they mean. Now, on mine, it has a fixed aperture, so 1.8 f1.8 aperture. On a fancier, more expensive drone, it has a variable aperture, like f2.8 to f16, but mine only has a fixed one. The shutter speed is fixed, the ISO is fixed. So on the cameras with fixed ISOs like mine, especially in daylight, it's very common for people to put ND filters on the drone so they can, get less light, so they can have slower shutter speeds. The camera settings are set on the remote control. So as you're flying, you can change the settings, and it just radios back and forth between the two, and it changes the settings as you fly. Now, some of the settings you can change, like if you're taking a video, some settings you can change while the video is going. Some settings you can't change. You have to stop the video, change the settings, and start the video again. And I just mentioned about the ND filters. So my experience, I've discovered that I've been taking a lot of video and stills and have a very small keeper rate. But every mistake is a opportunity to do it better next time. And I seem to be getting that. The other thing is, it's very hard to have a smooth video because the joysticks are very sensitive. You're sitting there flying it, and you think you're just touching the video, like just tapping it, and just a little bit of like a that versus that, which is just like a quarter of an inch, makes a huge difference in how fast and how drastic the change is in the video. So learning how to fly it smoothly is very difficult, but it's something you practice, and with practice you get there. And 2 months is not enough to be a pro at practicing, but I imagine in 4 to 6 months, total, I'll have it down where I know how to fly it so it's smooth. One thing that drones are notoriously good at is something called hyperlapses or time lapse. And that's kind of nice because there's settings in the controller where you can say, I want you to fly straight, and I want you to take a picture every 2 seconds, and I want you to make a 15-second video when you're done. And you just set it, and it just keeps going, click, 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 click. And there's a lot of settings you can do. And when you're done, you end up with a time lapse. And you often see drone footages where you see the traffic moving, and you see it's time lapse, and that's what they call it on a drone, a hyperlapse. Okay, so you're getting images, whether they're video or they're still images. just like you do when you take pictures with our DLSR, mirrorless, these cameras, you basically got to bring them into post-processing and you got to fix them. They're not going to be great straight out of camera. Obviously, they're usable straight out of camera, but they're going to have more impact if you do post-processing. For video, for example, they say take it in a very flat space and then you add what they call LUTs, or you adjust the coloring. For stills, you're doing the usual, post-processing. And again, practice. But do I regret any of the pictures I've taken, even the ones that don't come out? Absolutely not. I find it is a blast flying that thing. So I just enjoy going out there, trying to get pictures. And the thing is that we all are photographers, so we know the best time of day is towards the golden hours. Guess what? Drone's a camera, it just flies. Same rules, same techniques. Being creative. I haven't figured this one out yet. I'm still trying to figure out my creative way of flying a drone and getting images that I like. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos. YouTube is your friend here. YouTube is where you're going to find a lot of videos, and you can start seeing what people do, what they take, and what they find are good and bad. And you can start figuring out what you want to mimic. As we find in all our photography, flattery is compliment. We don't want to plagiarize, but we certainly want to flatter people by mimicking some of the things they do. So that's what being creative is. So my experience for video and hyperlapse, you need to add a soundtrack. For hyperlapse, it'll automatically add a soundtrack. It'll automatically add a soundtrack, but you probably get the same one everybody else uses, so you probably want to change it to something else. With video, you don't get a soundtrack, and you just find soundtracks. And anywhere, there's Adobe stock, there's Envato Elements, there's Shutterstock. There's lots of places you can find stock soundtracks, and you just find a soundtrack and you add it. I've been using Adobe Premiere, which I'm also learning because I never used Adobe Premiere until I got my drone, and how to make my video footage look good. But remember, you're the artist. You get to make the rules. Whatever you say is what you want to do is what you get to do. And chances are, make it work for you, and probably other people will like it too. Okay, so what are some tips and tricks? One is, before you buy a drone, do a little research and make sure you understand what is and isn't legal with the drone, and get the appropriate drone pilot license. You do need a license to fly. The good news is the trust, which is a recreational only use license, is free, as in no cost, no money, free. Now, the limitation on the recreational use one is you cannot do anything commercial or for trade. It has to be totally for fun. You can't do anything with the trust license that, like, I'll barter for you with this, or I'll sell you a picture, or I'm going to use it for profit or any beneficial use. For that, you need a 107 pilot's license, and that's about $300. It's like Pilot Institute has a course for about $150, and then the test's about another $150, $170. I haven't told my wife yet, but she's going to approve me getting that sooner or later. So you have to know the differences between the two. When you go get the recreational one, they'll explain to you what the difference is between the two and when you can use it. But for what I'm doing right now, which is just flying and taking pictures and having fun, the recreational one is fine. Step 2 is research the model you want. There's a lot of models out there. And just like digital cameras every year. There's a new model, new features. And of course, the new one is always better than the old one. And some people have what they call gear acquisition syndrome, gas, and have to get the new one. Some of us just keep what we have. So you basically have that research. And then you purchase the drone. And of course, my drone has two prices, the one I tell my wife and the one I really paid. And they're different. So my experience, I researched the legal limits. The recreational one is sufficient for what I'm doing. And as I said, unless you plan on using it for financial gain, even if it's bartering with someone else, so it's not necessarily a cash, but you say, well, I'll give you this in exchange for a membership or something like that. That's considered financial gain. I have looked, the Pilot Institute, I'm sure there are other places, but the one I stumbled upon, and they advertise a lot, the Pilot Institute has a lot of information about drones, legal issues. They have a weekly YouTube podcast, about 5-10 minutes with what's new in the drone world. Coming up soon is something called remote ID, where all drones are going to have to broadcast like a ID. Another thing about the legal limits is if a drone weighs less than 250 grams, it has one set of rules. And if it weighs more than 250 grams, which is about 50, but I can't remember the exact weight, but it's about a half a pound or so, it has a different set of rules. And my drone happens to be one that's under the 250 grams, so the rules are a little different. But again, you can fly recreational. If you buy one that's over 250 grams, you have to register the drone. It's $5 for 3 years, so it's not like it burdensome, but it does mean it's registered. And you have to figure out where you're allowed to and not allowed to fly. Flying is regulated by the FAA. But the big ones are, you cannot fly in any US national park. So you can't fly over the Liberty Bell because that's a national park. You can't fly in Yellowstone or Arches. New Jersey state parks is forbidden. County and city parks are open game, but the state parks are not allowed. In PA, there's like 6 parks where they have designated areas, but all the other parks are off limits. And again, the Pilot Institute, there's a place on their website where they tell you good places to fly by state, and they make some suggestions. It's a very good resource. There are 2 apps that you want to have on your phone. One is called Before You Fly, and the other is UAV Forecast. Before You Fly tells you if there's any, it basically uses a GPS in your phone, it figures out where you are, and it basically tells you if there's any restrictions. For example, if the president, regardless of party, whatever, is in Philadelphia, the entire Philadelphia area with a 20-mile radius of Philadelphia International Airport is in a no-fly zone, which means no drones can fly, no recreational pilots can fly. Commercial pilots, like, United Airlines, they can still fly because they're ready, have flight plans and all that. But I have a friend who owns a small, a 4-seater airplane, 1 engine. And when there was a no-fly zone, which applied to drones, it also applied to his little Piper Archer 4-seater single engine plane. So those come and go. They're called temporary flight restrictions, TFRs. And so a couple of times I was all ready to go fly, and I brought up the Before You Fly, and it says, damn, TFR. And all I could find is there was a VIP in the area. It didn't specify who. And unfortunately, our current president's house in Wilmington is close enough that sometimes we're under TFR if he's in Wilmington. But again, think when Trump was in Palm Springs at Mar-a-Lago, there was a TFR for all the people down in that area. So it's not anything to do with the party. It has to do with just where Air Force One in the president is. Okay, before you purchase an extensive drone, here's a little tip someone suggested after I bought mine. I wish I had gotten this hint beforehand. Go to Amazon, buy a cheap $30 to $50 one. Just buy a cheap one. It's not going to give you the greatest pictures, but you know what? You're going to learn how to fly. You're going to understand how a joystick works. You're going to understand how up, down, right, left, clockwise, counterclockwise. You're going to get the feel of all that. And you know what? If you crash a $30 or $50 drone, you won't feel as sad as if you crash a $700 drone. So that's just one very good tip. And just practice flying. And again, flying a drone towards you is going to feel very different than flying a drone away from you, because the drone controls are always based on the way the drone is heading, not the way you're heading. It's also harder to avoid obstacles than you expect. I told you I crashed my drone the second day of flying. I've also crashed a second time. The first only once to break enough, I had to send it back for repairs. See, I'm being honest here. This is true stuff. But I've learned that you have to figure out what the highest thing in the area is, and then make sure you're flying higher than that. So if the highest obstacles, like in my neighborhood, are trees, they're probably 60, 70 feet. So I try to fly over 100 feet. So I want to make sure I'm really above them, so I'm not going to accidentally hit one. Because unfortunately, if a tree and a drone collide, the tree wins every time. Another suggestion I get, especially if you buy a new drone in DJI, buy the insurance. Between the cost of the insurance and the one-time replacement cost for the one accident I had, it was cheaper than if I had to buy a whole new drone, and my drone was broken enough I would have had to be replaced. So 2 days in, I had to replace my drone. I was thankful I had bought that insurance, and I was able to get it replaced. My only frustration was the UPS travel time, which was not the drone manufacturer's fault. The other thing is you want to make sure you buy spare batteries. So the drone comes with one battery. I bought 2 extra batteries. So it's a total of 3. Each battery gives me about 30 minutes of flying time. And I'll typically in a session use up 2 batteries. And after that, I'm saying, like, I got to go see what I have and see what I did, because you got to do a little, then you got to figure out what you have, and it's a lot of concentration. And of course, do not fly on a windy or rainy day. Rain, obviously, because it's going to get wet. Wind is the drone is flying, and if it's too windy, the drone's not going to come back, because the wind's going to be pushing it harder than the drone can fly. So you don't want to fly on a rainy day. So here's some footage I took. This is a park about a mile and a half from my house. If you look down here, I'm the one in yellow, and that's my wife next to me, and the multicolor thing. So I just happened to get us in the picture. And I'm probably about 100 feet in the air at this point. So this is my house with the 2 beautiful trees, and this beautiful one here. My wife's pulling into the garage right now. So that's my house. Of course, you're going to practice near where you live. Where else are you going to practice? It's convenient. So this is my neighborhood. Most of you probably know I live in Jersey, and that's a typical suburban neighborhood in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Now, the beautiful part is, get you at the right time. I got a nice wide angle picture. There was an option in there to take a wide angle picture, and I did. And so this is, the sky, and this is, the suburbs. And can you see where my mouse is circling right there? It's hard to tell, but that's actually the Philadelphia skyline. So that actually right there is the Philadelphia. You have to zoom in. It's not crystal clear. I mean, you're not going to sit down and say, oh, that's a winning picture of the Philadelphia. But I was amazed that I could actually see if you get 100 feet up in the air from my house or whatever, you can actually see the Philadelphia skyline, because you certainly can't see it from my house. And there you can also see the Philadelphia skyline. I'm circling it right here. Now, one thing nice about this is you look at this picture, and one of the things I look at as I see this is in Photoshop, they have an option called replace sky. Guess what? I just figured out a way to be able to get my own sky pictures without a lot of junk in the picture. I can fly high enough and then I can get a picture of skies, different skies. And now I don't have to buy skies from people. I can get my own skies. So I can start replacing skies in some of my pictures. So that's that. And then this is the one picture I took at night from my neighborhood. And again, I don't know if you can see, but I circled right over here. Again, that's the Philadelphia skyline. And one of the reasons you see a lot of pictures aiming towards the Philadelphia skyline is because that's west of me. And when you take pictures at sunset, you want to aim towards where the sun is going down, and that's to the west, and Philly's to the west. So they happen to be in the same direction, which is why I get the Philadelphia skyline. So now I'm going to end my show here. I'm going to show one fun drone footage. So this is some footage I took. Remember the picture I took where I showed my wife and I, and we were in that park? Well, this is taken at the same place. So this is fall foliage in New Jersey. And you can see I added music because without the music, it wouldn't be as interesting. I'm going to switch to the other presentation now. And then when we get done at this time, I'll show you more drone footage. But I want to make sure we manage my time well here. So any quick questions on drones before I move on to this next presentation? All right, we can. Okay, so this is photography by Robert Urgazani. I'm terrible at pronouncing people's names. Everybody make up their own pronunciation. Keep it to yourself. No one has to embarrass themselves what it is. So these are, unfortunately, I'm going to keep each picture up, and just to make it logical, I'm going to keep each picture up for 12 seconds because I didn't take these pictures and I've never met the man, so I really can't tell you anything about him. I don't know what kind of camera he had. I do not know whether he used film or digital or what kind or whatever. But I do know that these are pictures that I'm sitting on. If I hadn't printed it on my wall, I'd be going, wow, these are impressive. These are very impressive pictures. So I'll let you all read this one. And I didn't look up, someone can look up later, where Dillon Road is.
It's actually it's Desert Hot Springs, California.
Stephen, are these drone photographs?
Are they what?
Are
No,
these-
no, they're not.
Okay,
I don't believe they are.
all right.
But they fit into the product because they are skies.
Oh, no, they're beautiful photographs. I'm just wondering if they were made with a drone or not.
No, I don't think the man is like 90 years old or 88 years old. I don't think the one thing I have to agree is that even though we don't have the narrative behind them, these pictures tell their own story, so they work.
So while you're enjoying the photography, I can tell you a little bit about Bob Bergazin. Um, he was very, very, very active in the Photographic Society of Philadelphia. He worked, he was a past president. He worked, he spent a lot of time working on the history of the Photographic Society of Philadelphia. In 1972, he moved to Desert Hot Springs, California. He continued to be supportive of the Photographic Society of Philadelphia as best he could from a distance. In 2019, he sent me this presentation. He told me that if I needed something for one of our meetings, that I should go ahead and show this presentation. And so that's what I'm doing. So in 2019, Bob Bergazin was 88 years old. His final statement is at the end of this presentation. And so he's just very, very long distance supportive of the Photographic Society of Philadelphia. And I just couldn't miss an opportunity to share his work with you. And also, one of his photographs is actually hanging in the Plastic Club. I included one of his photographs in the 160th anniversary show. So please enjoy. And for a future presentation, what I would like to do is get more information about the Photographic Society's history and do a presentation, a history presentation. It goes back, of course, 160 years. And through the years, there have been just some really, really amazing stories that have come out from our society. So I'm just really excited that we've made it to 160 years, and that people who have moved away from Philadelphia are still so very supportive of our organization.
So here's his final statement. Okay, so that was 2 presentations. Any questions about the drones? I'll show some more footage because I got some more fun footage. So again, this one's flying home, but this one has a fun ending. And just so you know, this house right here with the 2 trees, that's my house, the backside. And you can see how this one would be enhanced if I had added music to it, which I didn't. And there's my fall color tree in front of my house. And now the special part's coming up. That's my wife.
Stephen, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So I enjoyed your presentation. Thank you. Tell us about what drone you bought. And then if you would comment on one thing, if a person was interested in this more so for the still photography than for the video, how does the quality of the these images compare to what you might get with your with a DSLR kind of thing?
Okay, so I ended up buying the DJI Maverick Mini 3. And I did a lot of research. It was the 2 I was mainly considering was the Air 2S or the DJI Mini 3. If I really wanted the best quality, I would have gone with the Maverick 3, but that would have cost me probably an additional $1,500 more. And I know my wife would have killed me if I spent more than I did. So just so you know, I told her it was about 1,200, but really it was like 1,400. Just don't tell her. She'll look at the credit card bill. She'll figure it out eventually. Anyway, I did a lot of research. The Maverick Mini 3 is getting rave reviews. It has 2 modes for still. It's got a 12 megapixel and it's got a 48 megapixel option. The zoom on the Maverick 3 Mini 3 is a digital zoom, which means that what you do when you zoom is what you could do in Photoshop. It's just like, the old camera phones where when you zoomed in there, it was just a digital, they just moved the pixels. The quality, as you saw, was fairly good in my presentation of the still one, because the ones I had in the PowerPoint were all still photos I took. So the quality is really good. The video is also good. The one thing with the video, you do need to use the ND filters, because for those who do any video, that you want to basically use what they call the 180 rule. And again, I'm learning all this because I didn't do video up until this. You don't want too fast a shutter speed, because you need some blur or it doesn't look realistic. It starts looking choppy when you do video with a very high shutter speed. So you have to drop the shutter speed, which you use an ND filter. For stills, it's perfect. Getting the without the ND filter, you just get a very sharp picture. So yes, I would say it's very sharp. I don't know if you saw the one I showed you a minute ago. When we were watching the foliage, you could actually see a bird. At least I can, because I'm looking at it without going through Zoom. I could actually see a bird flying in the picture, and the bird was like this big. So yes. There's also a DJI mini starter, it just lasts. And so you have to look at the specs and do some research. But my research said that the current top hobbyist one would be the Mini 3 Pro, which is the one I got.
Okay, well, thanks for those tips.
Stephen, you're really a pioneer here. Great. Thank you for sharing all of this.
Well, I figured most of us didn't use one, but if you got, and by the way, anybody who wants to, after the meeting, say, I'm thinking of it, and you want to talk to me about it and discuss it, I'm retired. I got time. I'm happy to talk to anybody. Be happy to share more.
Does the camera that you have shoot RAW files or just JPEGs?
This one shoots RAW and JPEG.
RAW and JPEG.
So you have 2 choices, JPEG or RAW plus JPEG. You can't just shoot RAW, but that's okay. I can handle that.
Oh, that's terrific.
That's fine. I can, as long as I get the RAW. Yeah.
No,
And I bring it into Lightroom, and you edit it, and it's just fine. When you shoot hyperlapses, you can just shoot a hyperlapse, or you can shoot the hyperlapse plus keep the RAWs that were used for the hyperlapse. Video, of course, just shoots video, but you can shoot it in what they call normal or D-Cine-like. D-Cine-like is normal is an 8-bit file, the bit depth color. D-Cine-like is a 10-bit, and then you would apply in like Adobe Premiere or Photoshop Video, you can attach color LUTs to it, which allows it to just bring out more vibrance in the colors.
You're having too much fun.
You have to have fun. Life's too short. But believe me, you wouldn't have wanted to be with me the day after my drone flew into a tree.
Yeah.
I felt like this big, which is why I shared that with you, because I think, you have to hear what really happens, not the just all the good stuff. All right, I'm going to show you another drone footage here. Let's see if I can find one that's let's do this one. I think let's do this. Oh, I'm going to share my screen again. So they're doing some construction nearby. And you're sitting there like, what are they building? So I was able to take some footage. And based on those two towers, I decided they're building a 4-story structure, and those are elevator towers. This was taken about a month ago. That first part we're looking at is actually now 4 stories high with a roof. So I guessed right, about 4 stories. I don't know about the fire tower, the elevator part, but I'm still assuming these are either elevator or fire escape towers.
Why is this going, it's not a smooth video. This is sort of like a short little jump.
As part of it is the Zoom, because I'm playing something via Zoom and it's buffering, because me watching it is fairly smooth. And I'm going to give a shameless plug. I just started posting my videos on my Instagram account. So my Instagram account is my name. So it's SM Ehrlich, SMEHRLICH, and the number 1220. And 1220 is December 20, which is my birthday. So now you know when to go shopping for me. And just as a little bit of trivia, if you really want to figure out how old I am, the day I was born was the first day of Hanukkah. So the year I was born, 1220, was the first day of Hanukkah. So I was a little Hanukkah present for my mother. And I have one more I want to show. And this is one of the earlier ones I did. I'm going to do this one. So this, I live very close to Route 73 in Marlton. So I try to make this like a story or something. And again, we're now flying actually over 2 car dealerships. The one on the right, they're rebuilding the showroom. The one on the left is a Chevy dealership. And straight ahead is an elementary school, and on the right is a hospital. Upper left, you'll see that same construction we looked at a minute ago in the previous video. And if you look, there's a white car and there's me in a red shirt flying the drone down there. So to answer your question, as sharp as the videos are, the stills will be as sharp or not sharper than what you see in the videos. So the stills are very sharp also. It's the same camera. Well, I hope you all enjoyed learning about drones. Maybe I either scared you away or perked your interest, but I'm having a blast flying it. And it's so much fun.
Stephen, once again, super thank you. And really, if everybody in the list who signed in isn't really rushing out to buy a drone right now, I don't know. I think we failed. But thank you, thank you. It's just really, we're still writing with light. It doesn't matter what we're using to capture the images. We're writing with light, which is the whole thing behind the Photographic Society of Philadelphia. It's writing with light.
Well, it's still a camera. It's just flying.
It's just
Camera
great.
with wings.
I think it's just great, and your insight into what's involved in it was amazing, because we just, yeah, we think drone blah blah blah, but to actually have a really complete explanation of what's involved once you start getting into using a drone. Yeah, thank you. That's all I can say is thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank everyone who tuned in tonight. It's just a really good way of continuing the Photographic Society of Philadelphia and sharing information. And if you just leave a meeting and you've learned one little itsy bitsy thing, one little inspiration, then it was worth your hour that you joined us. So once again, I mean, I just thank you, thank you, thank you. Anybody else?
Oh, thank you, Stephen. We'll let you fly it and tell you when to snap the shutter.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Eileen.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
Very
I mean,
good.
one of the things we could do is someday we could meet at a park and we could actually, sort of fly it and get an idea and, sort of,
That would be fun.
so we could arrange to meet like at Rittenhouse Square or Penn's Landing or somewheres. And-
Will they let you fly it in Rittenhouse Square?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, cool.
It's not, I want to be careful Washington Square, because Washington Square, I think, may be part of a national park.
Yes.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So that one may be forbidden. We'd have to check. I have to do a little research ahead of time to figure out where we could fly.
Yeah.
But I do know the art museum. I know the art museum is a good place to fly. So we could definitely meet like at Eakins Oval. I can say things. I can talk. Eakins Oval would be a place where we could meet, or right in front of like around the art museum. There's plenty of places to, or behind the art museum. Go down the between the art museum and the west the Boathouse Road, that side. We could definitely find a place to meet up and just launch from there.
Yeah, that area is very photogenic. I mean, you've got the River Drive too, and the
Yep,
Boathouse Row. So
that would be a place to meet.
there's a lot of possibilities in that area.
Yeah. Yeah. And then another thing we talked about was I have this pixel stick, which we did years ago, where I'll tell you about that sometime, and we need to bring that back out again from my closet. Have to make sure it works, and then it worked when I put it away. All right.
We're gonna say good. I think we're ready to say good night, sweet dreams. Good night, sweet dreams.
Good night.
Good night.